There we go. We're live. Welcome, everyone. Live streaming if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, whatever the case may be. Excuse me, checking us out now. Of course, join the conversation to the side. I'll get the comments going. We got a lot to talk about. Of course, college football less than 3 weeks now until the kickoff on Labor Day weekend. Oklahoma goes to Tulane, and JT, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. JT, a Sooner fan. We're going to talk Sooner fan. We're talking Sooner football, Big 12 football, you name it. We're going to talk about it tonight. So, JT, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. Hey, man. I'm glad to be here. It's cool. Never really been in this kind of a setting, but I'm excited to get out there and talk about it. I love talking about it. I can talk about Sooner football all day, just college football in general.
Most definitely. And you're obviously in Sooner country just as much as I am. And first things first, we got to talk about it. What was your reaction when the Houston Chronicle broke the news that, hey, Oklahoma and Texas is talking to the SEC, apparently from Texas A&M? 9 days later, of course, Oklahoma unanimously goes into the SEC. Well, what's your thoughts on that? And I personally thought it was clickbait.
If there was ever like a smoke where there's smoke, there's fire thing, I mean, you always hear them talk about that in the media and stuff, but that thing went up like a building fire. I mean, that just went up and there was no stopping it. Like, it was like you knew whenever, I think, what was it, Texas and Oklahoma issued statements from the university, and they didn't deny it, but they didn't confirm it. So then you're like, oh, okay, yeah. They've probably been working on it for a while, I'm sure. I mean, just the way of the world, I guess. But yeah, it was really cool. I was like, it's one of those surreal things. You hear Oklahoma, or you people talking about Oklahoma, and they're like, they're talking about maybe not leaving for the Big Ten back, whatever realignment happened back in 2011. And then, I'm actually probably pretty glad that didn't happen either. I think Oklahoma would have been fine. But still, I mean, that's what killed Nebraska, was leaving Texas, in my opinion. I think that's what they chose, the money, and they chose the academics, and that's kind of showed itself on the field. So, but yeah, it's the SEC is a perfect fit. I mean, it really is. So
I'm excited for it, of course. I'm like you, of course, obviously 10 years ago when all this conference realignment shenanigans kicked off into gear, and Oklahoma had, I believe from what I heard, had the option to leave, and they obviously chose to stay. I know Bob Stoops, 10 years ago was practically saying, if Oklahoma State's not coming with us, we don't want to be a part of it. So, needless to say, I'm not going to be a basher of Oklahoma State, more realistic. From what I'm hearing on the radios here locally and reading on the internet and so on and so forth, realistically for Oklahoma State, they're kind of up a creek without a paddle. I mean, anywhere particularly you think that might be a good fit. I'm still thinking Pac-12, but I don't know from this standpoint if that's even an option at this rate.
Yeah, it sounds like a merger. Like, I think the AAC and the Pac-12, or the AAC and the Big 12 should merge. I think that should probably be the best case scenario for that. It's hard. I mean, I guess because the Pac-12's got to think money wise, so they have to think that whoever's remaining has to drive enough money for them to take them. So I mean, it's just, do they want to, break into the central market? Do they want to break into the central time zone? I mean, is it that important to them? I mean. It's just, I guess it's really just up to the Pac-12 if they feel like it's worth it. And if they don't, they're in trouble. So, I mean, seriously, I mean, these 8 schools in the Big 12 are in trouble if they don't find landing places. And it's hard, when Oklahoma and Texas pull the weight that they do. And now you realize, like, I think Iowa State said something like the Big 12's like the what is it, the WAC or something like that without Oklahoma and Texas, just the revenue wise. I mean, seriously, I mean, they know their place, but it's just, I hope Oklahoma State lands on their feet. I really do. I think, like, at least Oklahoma State's probably, outside of Texas, the best school left. I mean, I know Iowa State's hitting their stride, but Oklahoma State, and I mean, I guess there's TCU and Tech, but like, even like just as a school wise, I mean, I think Oklahoma State all around is probably the best, most attractive thing left.
Yeah, I would definitely probably agree with you. I would say that Oklahoma State's probably your best man in. I don't know. Besides Iowa State, I know Kansas State. When you look at it, I don't know if they happen not to merge with the Pac-12, and let's just say they keep it to the local eight. I know, of course, articles saying Kansas is going to the Big Ten. We'll believe it when we see it type of thing. But if they lose Kansas, I know Kansas doesn't produce in football. We all know that. Unless you're Texas, they beat Texas. But besides that, they don't produce besides basketball. I like Kansas from a basketball standpoint. I have nothing against them personally anyway, but I don't know if the Big Ten's a good. I know it'd be locally closer, but they wouldn't compete very well, I don't think, in the Big Ten.
No, it'd be like a Rutgers situation. But the problem with, at least with Rutgers, they're in Jersey, so New York's just right there. I mean, it's a hard sell, I mean, you've already got to sell Lincoln to recruits, and and it's not like you can go play Texas or Oklahoma. Yeah, you're going to play Ohio State, and they're going to whip you. Like, that's just what they've done since they got in there. I mean, it's not even. I don't know. I think, what was it, last year? It might have been the closest game, and it's usually close for a half. I mean, and that's it. I mean, it's just, I guess, is basketball attractive enough? Is it attractive enough for them to take it? Because that's all you're selling, essentially. So, I mean, Kansas, if they don't go to the Big Ten, based on the academics and the basketball program, maybe the AAC would take them. Maybe. I mean, seriously, maybe basketball they would take them because they probably have a ton of value, and Houston's hitting their stride in AAC. Yep. Like, Houston's a great basketball school there. They've got they've really hit their stride as a conference in college basketball. So I think Kansas could be a really good fit there. But if they don't hit the Big Ten, the Pac-12 is definitely not taking them. So I just no way. I just don't see it. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I agree with you. And of course, I don't know. I listen, of course, to 107.7. Of course, they call it the Irate 8, which I like. I like that name, but nonetheless, I don't know where the Big 12 goes from here. Presuming things go kicking the gear, I don't know if they're going to merge or what. I think they have no option at this rate. I know Oklahoma State is eventually going to, I would imagine, dominate what's left of the Big 12 as long as nobody else leaves.
Right.
I just don't know if I know I get the Big 12 gets that automatic bid and what have you, but realistically speaking, is that even having 8 teams? Is that even enough to get them in the playoff and or that New Year's Six Bowl?
I don't think so. I think they're going to have to redo. When they do the 12-team playoffs, I think they're going to have to redo how they. I know that they don't want to do this, but like I'm a believer that the power, the power, I guess it'd be Power 4.
Mm-hmm.
They'll play their own national championship, like the playoff format, and then the group of 5 would play their own. I just feel like the talent gap is so great between the two, because you have your outliers. You had UCF or Boise that maybe come in and beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. You know what I mean? And it was just they had a great team, and it was just the right things happened. And the stars aligned and they went to win, but there's no way the stars align 3 straight games in a playoff system in the format they're headed to.
No.
There's just no way. Now, going to a Power 4 conference where the blue chips are all there, I think these teams can build up that depth to handle those 3 games. I just don't see how, like you said, the Irate 8. There's no way they keep that status to get in. They to hold on a certain integrity of football, because I feel like if you allow somebody like Boise, it's not necessarily no integrity, but you're seriously going to put a 12 seed Boise against Ohio State, or there's just maybe they keep up for a couple quarters, maybe they give them a game, hell, maybe they upset them, but there's no way they win the second round or the third one. Just no way.
No, and I think, and my dad always said, and he still says it to this day, even though his health is declining, but he's always said, hey, if you put in, it's a difference from preparing someone for a month compared to week in and week out, like you said, the playoff. I don't know, and obviously I have nothing against Boise, even though they did beat us in the Fiesta Bowl
Yeah.
way back then, and that's cool. That's fine and dandy. I just don't know if that was having a playoff thing. Could they do it week in and week out? And I mean, you never know. But looking at the Big 12, and of course, we obviously now know Oklahoma, Texas go into the Southeastern Conference. If the Big 12, even though I thought they should have expanded a long time ago, is who would you pick if you were Commissioner Bowlesby? Who would you even remotely go after to try to save the conference? I don't. There's nobody out there that attracts me personally.
Yeah. The whole idea though is you have to retain Oklahoma and Texas. So if you were to, so hypothetically speaking, if you retain Oklahoma and Texas, I guess SMU and Houston, but you kind of already own the market there. I mean, it's not really like you're breaking into something crazy. Maybe Boise. I mean, you already went out to West Virginia, so I mean, what's the point of going to Idaho and taking Boise? I mean, that would be it. I mean, SMU, Houston, or Boise, because BYU, I don't know about the whole religious thing. Apparently, that's a stop for the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you bring them in. I mean, and I'm pretty sure the academies don't. I don't know if there's like a stipulation for the academies if they can't join conferences, but I don't know. Maybe you ask Air Force or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't need. I know the religious thing in the Pac-12 is the biggest killer. I know a lot of people brought that up with Baylor and TCU being, a religious university, and of course we all know BYU is as well. I don't know how that would affect, if anything. I know TCU, Baylor. I don't know if they don't get in the Pac-12. I don't know where they would go. AAC at very best, Conference USA potentially. Mountain West, I guess. I don't really know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the AAC could theoretically merge and become the first 16-team group of 5 conference, I guess.
Oh.
And I mean, the Pac-12 doesn't have 16 teams, so it's like, hey, we have 16. So I don't know. Is it race to how many teams? I mean, because if the AAC raids the Big 12, then the Pac-12 doesn't really have anything to go off of, I guess. I mean, I guess they could take Boise if they get crazy and want to expand, or they just keep the same 12 members they have. I mean,
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I would find that quite a bit hilarious to see the AAC kind of make that first jump, just because we don't really expect it.
Right. And Bowlesby and then the commissioner of the AAC, I'm not sure of his name, but they just come together and they decide to merge, and they maybe the amount of teams keeps their spot in a playoff, and maybe that's how they end up keeping it, because there's no way that the rest of the Big 12 is going to stay automatic. There's just no way. So maybe all the clamoring that the group of 5's done, and obviously the expansion of the playoff, if they merge, gives them a way better chance, and maybe they can keep the 5 automatics instead of just taking down the 4.
Ooh. Well, I do know, regardless of what happens, mentioned up earlier, I do agree with you, is the fact that you're going to have the Power 4, potentially 5, depends on what happens there. I think they'll eventually do their own thing. I think you'll have your mid-majors do their own thing and kind of just ramrod it. Yeah. I could see it. I'm kind of pick your brain. Do you think eventually the NCAA is going to be, let's say, branched out or non-existent because the SEC's dominance, or they just have less of a role than they do currently?
Well, I think that's the way it's going. I think the NCAA is they've fumbled so many things. Yeah. I mean, I think you could only trip over your feet so much before you just fall and you won't ever get up because you don't know how to walk in the first place. I mean, I don't see, I don't know who governs college football. I could see maybe obviously those conferences get so powerful that they end up just kind of running things themselves. Like a chancellor thing or like a board. Mm-hmm. And of course the NCAA disbands as far as football regulation or just sports in general, because I don't think they do a very good job. I think there's a lot of people that could do the job better than them in every sport. I don't think just college football. But I don't see a very bright future for the NCAA. They took way too long to do the NIL stuff, and even then, it's really they really didn't put any rules on it. I mean, they put like a handful and said, "Well, you guys figured out the rest," and that's what we're paid to do it. But you guys figure out the rest. But we're going to put this in place and figure it out. I mean, considering that cool schools and things like that have been paying recruits for the longest time.
Yes.
So I mean, now the NIL is just a formality. I mean, essentially at this point, they've kind of just said, "Well, we know what's going on, but now it's just out there." So, there you go. So,
I like the NIL. At first I won't lie, I was kind of bashing at first, and then of course I had East Tennessee or a Tennessee State player come on and kind of explain it better. And after all thing, I know a lot of people. I love reading comments. Spencer Rattler and his ordeals and everybody else, and I think it's good. I think it at least helps out. I mean, I get people's argument that they're on there for a scholarship, so on and so forth, and I get that as well. But
right.
I think it's the time we're living. I think it's time that stood up. I definitely do agree with a lot of the players saying, "Hey, it's the university is practically using us as it is, obviously our name, and to get the brand out there, so to speak." So, were you all? What's your kind of? Were you for it or?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's at first I was probably like you, kind of like, how does this? I grew up watching college football. I mean, I've grown up. I mean, that's my sport. I mean, college football has been what I've loved since I was little. So I mean, it's a weird thing because you're always like, well, the scholarships pay for this or that. Well, they really don't. I mean, athletes have lives as well. I mean, they have lives outside of football, and a lot of it requires money. Not everyone's parents are loaded, and sometimes they've got to come to school and they've got to do what's best for them. And sometimes doing what was best for them was violating the rules, which is awful. I think I do think there's probably a certain way like that you might violate the integrity of the game, but that's more like an illegal thing. But the illegal thing to the NCAA is taking help from somebody, which is awful. They're struggling. They're brand new, adults. A lot of those guys, a lot of people forget those guys are just kids. They're 18, they don't know life at all. They just know what's been taught to them. And so you're coming in and you've got financial needs as well. And sometimes it doesn't cover it, and I think this NIL thing is great. And I think it's just way overdue. But I mean, it's great that they're getting such a platform to be able to use their voice, and they're also compensated for the work they put in, because they do put in a lot of work. I mean, hell, if you've looked at a schedule of an average athlete, I mean, it's insane. So, I mean, they work really hard, and they deserve it. So.
Speaking of works really hard, Lincoln Riley's working really hard.
Yeah.
You got to love this recruiting class that's coming in 23.
Oh, I know. It's looking great. But then again, we got to hold for breaks a little bit. It's 2 years. If you know anything about Oklahoma recruiting, you just got to take it for face value. Face value right now is it's lining up to be great. But I think it's great, and just got to stay positive. I think it's a great and positive thing for 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds to commit now. But things change, and they change so fast for high school age kids. They really do. So it does look great. And I'll tell you what looks even better. Some of this 22 guys.
They look good.
Yeah. Some of these 22 guys. The work I really appreciate is their evaluations. I mean, if you remember, like, who's that corner they did that evaluation on last year? It turned into a 5-star. Was it 2 years ago? Maybe he went to Oregon. He took a bunch of money, apparently.
Yes.
But they did it. He was a 3-star, and when they evaluated him and offered him, and he, and then everyone is like, oh, and that was Grinch's first year. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think Lincoln and Grinch have done amazing in evaluations. So
I like Grinch when he came in. Of course, his first year was rough. Then that was expected. That was expected. I think anybody's first year would have been rough with what Mike Stoops.
The I formation.
Yeah.
I formation defense.
Yeah. We're just gonna line up and we're gonna play 15 yards.
That Georgia game I always think about it because that's a natty right there. and we couldn't even stop the I formation. You know what I mean? So that's all Georgia ran. They didn't run anything complex.
Well,
Sure,
there's no reason to.
they had 2 NFL running backs. Sure,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, but still, load the box. Make a
You know,
make a true freshman throw the ball. You know.
You just had that game. I literally, like, kid you not, dude. At the end of the game, my heart just sunk. My whole adrenaline just went out. Like I died. It just literally just poof.
Well, you know, when you grow up watching OU in Florida, right? It was a great game. It was a great game. It was a great game to the end. Obviously, watching us get steamrolled by USC, and then other than that, like, you watch these national championships that Oklahoma's been in, and then you watch that game, and that game just brought, like, at halftime, I was like, wow, like, we might actually do this. And it's just one of those things, like, you don't want to get your hopes up because you're like, you know what I mean? Like, hell,
I know exactly what you mean.
We were giving Florida everything we had in 2009 or 2008, and you know, the things just didn't go right for us that night. I mean, it could have went either way, and it wasn't one of those teams where Florida was just that much better. It just didn't go right, and you know, so you grow up watching all that, and then you watch the Georgia game, and you're like, we might do this, and then the second half comes around, and you're like, oh man, just so many emotions in that game.
Dude, it's forever going to be an instant classic. I'm not going to knock that by any means, and, you know, give credit to credit dues for Georgia. But do I think OU's going to? I think OU. I mean, people that listen. If realistically, people, if you're a Sooner fan and we think we're going to the SEC and to completely dominate, I don't know. No. Are we going to lose games? Yes. Are we going to win games? Yes. Do I think we're going to win SEC championships? Yes, but probably not in the first few years. However, with the talent-wise, you never know.
Right.
But, you know, going back to that, bowl games against the SEC, you know, in 2003, 03 with against LSU in the national championship, that was another game that literally we could have won, and a few things didn't go as planned. But I mean,
right. No, I don't. You know, I fully expect 10-2, 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just how it is. I mean, hell, even great Alabama teams have had 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 2 lost national champions. LSU's one of them.
Yep.
So I mean, it's a gauntlet.
It's a murder's row.
Yeah, but the thing is, you get home games against LSU. You get away games in Tuscaloosa. I would take that in a classic, and if we lose, then over playing Kansas and beating them by 60, and those guys being bored and not playing well and getting hurt by some team that doesn't deserve to be on the same field. They just, you know, they don't care about their football program. They just, the development of their players, like, you name it. It's just, they don't belong on the same field. But if we go play in the SEC, there might be 2 or 3 teams that's that way. It's versus half of our schedule, maybe more. You know, Iowa State's had their 2 best years that they could think of in recent memory, and now we're leaving. That's pretty funny. But, like, I just thought it was hilarious. Like, they're doing so well, and then now we're revolting. But
no, exactly.
Poor Matt Campbell. He's such a good coach. I like that dude.
Oh, I love that dude. That dude's awesome.
I love him. But
yeah,
but we go to the SEC and we go and play Ole Miss. You know, maybe Ole Miss isn't ranked, but we're going to Oxford. As far as that place is great, from what I've heard. And so yeah, any game we play, sure, we go 10-2, 9-3. But I guarantee you, we didn't get blown out in those games.
No,
those games were close, or within a possession or 2. But like, I just being able to see, you know, iron sharpens iron, right?
Yep.
So I mean, if you win the SEC and you win the national championship, you are the best team in the country.
Oh, by far.
And I think that's going to be solidified even more. You know.
I get, you know, a lot of people. I've read some comments that some OU fans. I don't know. There's a few out there that surprisingly that's a little upset about this, and whatever. I don't know why you would be. I get it's the history and the tradition, and, you know, I don't like change and all this. Think of it this way: we're replacing Kansas practically with the entire conference, just in itself. The road games to Death Valley and Baton Rouge at 7 p.m. is going to be through the roof compared to 11 a.m. kickoff time against Kansas and Lawrence. I mean,
Yeah.
hate to put the 11 o'clock out there, people, but we're used to that stuff. But nonetheless, it's just I get its history, I get its tradition, I get it. Things. Well, I don't like change. This is the best conference, whether we want to admit that or not. This is the best conference in college football by far, and this would just only boost the talent. I'll be honest with you. I think personally, a lot of our issues is we walk into some of these conference games, West Virginia, and we just do what we kind of want to do and hope for the best. And because I just don't think the players are there to every week. There's just not that motivation like you get with LSU and Georgia and Bama and Tennessee and Kentucky with Mark Stoops, and he's doing a phenomenal job in Lexington and so on and so forth. They're just not a team. Maybe Vanderbilt. They're just not a team out there that's like, man, this is a shit show. No, it's maybe Vanderbilt. Besides that, it's you better bring your A game because your B game might get you beat.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you go to, like I said, you go to Manhattan or you go to Lawrence. Well, Manhattan's a pretty decent environment, actually. I know those guys went up there, and I know we almost came back whenever Jalen Hurts was here, and that was a tough one. But because watching them get their cheeks clapped for like 3 quarters, and then they finally wake up and they're like, "Oh wow, we're not in Lawrence."
Crap.
So like, we expected these guys to just roll over and let us win. But you can't walk into the SEC and do that, And it didn't matter against us. Like even Vanderbilt will put up a fight against you if you're feeling risky. So I mean, a lot of people I think forget that the playoffs going to 12.
Yep.
So I mean, it's more than most likely going to go to 12. But it doesn't matter. Like this whole if it was a 4-team playoff, I might be a little disappointed because we do have a walk in the park to get there.
Absolutely.
I think even if it was 6, but like 8 to 10 to 12, you're giving yourself more of a chance, and there's just no reason to deny yourself the money whenever you can just win 9 games and get in anyways because you're in the SEC. Because they look at the SEC differently. Not the I don't want to be one of those guys that's chanting SEC at football games. But
now I will say this: if we start chanting that, I'm gonna have to say something because that's just gonna get old.
Yeah, that's some A&M stuff right there. Like we don't do that. We're used to winning. We actually win football games, and we go to playoff games. We may have not won one, but we still go there.
Hey, we make it. That's the main thing, okay?
Yeah. The gauntlet. That's the Big 12. That's we have to beat ourselves first.
In the words of in the words of Johnny Manziel, the Big 12 is a cakewalk compared to the SEC. When he said that comment, I'm thinking, no shit, dude. You just came up with it. Are you drunk or are you sober? Let me let you know, because I mean, obviously the SEC is tougher than the Big 12. Nobody said that it wasn't.
Right.
But Aggie fans,
they're another breed.
I can't stand them. I can't stand them.
They're another breed. I mean, it's like A&M is like their own little planet. College Station's like their own little world, and the rest of the world just kind of does it. So I mean, at least I can say this about Oklahoma. Most of our fan base, we don't resolve in our own little world. We have each other's backs, and we do things on Twitter, but we don't most of us are pretty rational. So if we get beat, we own it. You know what I mean? We're 0-4 in the playoff. That's just what we are. We don't run around and claim that we're better than everyone else. Sure, and we say our defense has been a work in progress, but you look at A&M, and they won an Orange Bowl against a bunch of dudes that sat out. Yep. And they're like, oh, whoa. And they were losing in that game in the 4th quarter. They didn't want any of Oklahoma. I can promise you that. Neither did Florida.
And that's why A&M really bitched, moaned, and groaned towards the end, because they realized, and technically and theoretically, it should have been OU and Texas A&M. However, I
mean, you saw how that dude reacted to the news. Ross Bork, or whatever his name is, the AD down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he was mad. He's like, we're the only school in Texas that represents the SEC, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, quit. Like, that's the only thing you have. When we lose out to recruits to A&M, it's because they play in the SEC. That's pretty much the only reason. And now that reason is gone. So maybe they hit the reset button a little bit.
Well, hopefully Jimbo Fisher maybe calmed it all down and be like, hey, we might have got OU Texas in, even though some people are claiming that OU Texas was actually in the works 6-7 months ago prior to the announcement, which I do believe that. I think that was a quick, pretty 9 days. However, I just like how A&M just came out. You know, they bitched, moaned, and groaned. Oh, we want to be the only team in Texas in the SEC. Okay, well, good job, dude. I don't care about that part. But then obviously, which I like to pick your brain because obviously, I was kind of curious. Do you think A&M voted yes just to avoid that issue? Oh, it's all 13-1. We all know who the one would be instead of 14-0, that which finally ended up being the votes. Do you think they just voted just to kind of potentially avoid any drama, or do you just kind of don't want to be?
I think they fell in line. If you read the leaves on Twitter, like I think there were some talks. I think Sankey and all the SEC members talked to each other about it, and I think that they just fell in line because I don't think it was just all them that just decided to, obviously. But I think they had a lot of pressure from everyone else. Like, hey, it's not worth it. Don't die on this hill. I mean, we're going to take them. It's about money. It's nothing against you guys. Great. Thanks for being here. Blah, blah, blah. You're bringing us a lot of money, whether you win or not. You're still bringing in a ton of money because that's how Texas is. Because why else would you take Texas? You would obviously take Oklahoma all day just based on the last 10 years. But Texas is money. Texas I think they're the top grossing school in the country, and they average 8 wins a year the last 10 years. So, however that works, but that's just the reality of it. So, I think when it came down to it, I don't think that. I think they're just like, hey, it's not worth it. It's not worth being the only one just because you're having a grudge against them or whatever. It's just not worth it. I think you're gonna have to give up because there's gonna be. I think when they leaked it, maybe they were hoping. Because what I think it's 4 could say no, and it would be then it wouldn't be the majority. Maybe when they leaked it, they were hoping they could get support, and then all of a sudden, like as it went on, the support wasn't there. Like they thought maybe it would be, and so that leak just ended up doing nothing except making them look stupid.
So it made them look like dumbasses.
Yeah, it made them look like they were butthurt, like they didn't want it to happen. So.
I can't think of the Missouri's coach name, but during the SEC media day, when someone brought up the question. Because also that's when it was leaked out during the SEC media day a few weeks back. I liked his answer. I don't know the guy. I can't think of his name. Yes.
Yeah.
I like what he said. When someone said, "What's your thoughts on Oklahoma, Texas?" Well, right now we're worried about who they start off with in the season. I like the end though. However, when they get in the conference, that's a headache I got to worry about. That dude's like, "Hey, come on, man. We're going to take the challenge." Missouri obviously knows about OU and Texas. They're not shy of them. So, no, I think I really do. I think that. SEC, from what I've read and heard, is I think they're pretty excited. Maybe not for Texas, but
no. I think I listened to 107.7 as well. They had a guest, like from Alabama, and they were like, "Yeah," the dude was like, "Yeah, we're thrilled to have Oklahoma." Now Texas is on the other hand, they haven't done anything, so they've killed every conference they've come into, essentially. Like if you follow the trail, the Big 8 became the Big 12, but Texas was always a circle in the problem. But I feel like Texas joining the SEC, I just don't think they're big. I know they're big. They're huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Cash cow. But I don't think they're big enough to take down the SEC. I just don't. You're going up against I mean, the tradition and pageantry and things like that. I think the SEC is just so sacred. And what they've done over the last 20 years, they built up such a big deal. I don't think Texas could come in and do anything to it. So SEC has been very receptive of Oklahoma from what I've read, but not so much Texas, which is funny. It's just funny. They leave the Big 12 and the hate just follows them. It's just funny. Like, oh, you guys always ruin everything.
No, I know exactly what interview you're talking about because I was listening out on the way home that one day that they were on. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and that's what's funny is, a lot of, like you mentioned, they're just not – I don't think anybody likes Texas besides Texas. Nobody likes Texas. Yeah. You got the baseball players, even college baseball players doing the horns down. Nobody likes Texas.
No, they've done it to themselves. I mean, essentially, this is so weird how during this whole deal, Texas and Oklahoma had like an armistice. or something going on. Like, well, we always talk crap to each other on Twitter, but like it just stopped for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's like, okay, we're both going, and that's great. And I hope Texas does get better, because not that I know everyone hates him and I don't like him either, but like college football's better when Texas and Oklahoma are in the top 10 playing each other.
Yep.
And Texas has a good team, like it's not just they're ranking them because they like them because they're Texas, because which they do all the time, but they do have the talent down there. They just need the right coaching. They need to endure the boosters, and they gotta have buy-in. I think Tom Herman was just such a square guy. I just don't think that anybody could believe in him, or really take him seriously. And I want Texas to be successful, because when we beat a good Texas team, there you go. We have real bragging rights. But when we beat them, we're supposed to. That's how it's been the last 5 years. We were supposed to beat Texas. So,
I will say this. I missed the good old early 2000s where you had the number 5 Oklahoma, number 4 Texas, vice versa, OU, top 10. And even when OU and Texas were both top 15 programs, it just got that missing feel. I was kind of hoping Tom Herman would have stuck around, just because I'm kind of curious. However, how many beers do you think it's going to take for Steve Sarkisian to finally get? Because, people, if you don't remember, at USC, he was drunk, and that was a short-lived tenure at USC. Hopefully, I have a few drinks. I don't get drunk. I have a few just to kind of relax, but hopefully he settled that down. But we got to kind of mess around with it. Over or under 4 beers before he gets drunk and goes off on a rampage.
Man, I would say less than. I mean, you got to think, if your tolerance is lower, it's going to take less. But, I mean, I just don't, there's so many other places I think you could walk into, and there's just, even USC probably doesn't have that much pressure. And so Texas has so much pressure.
Yes,
and the guy's a recovering addict. I think Nick Saban did a great job, probably, I'm sure, keeping him in line and groomed him kind of to be this guy now who's taking over Texas. And I want to believe in the guy, because I don't want him to be drunk, and I want Texas to be good.
Exactly, no.
And the guy ran a lot of what Lincoln Riley does at Alabama. Yep. Runs a lot of motion, getting guys in space. That's what the SEC is now. It's guys in motion, fast guys in space, and that's the way college football is going, because that's what Lincoln Riley started doing, and that's what he's been doing for a long time, is getting guys out in space. So yeah, I think Sarkisian, he was an interesting hire to me, because it's just like, with that history, he doesn't really have a good, solid, proven head coaching record. He did a decent job at Washington. He didn't win championships. It was good enough to go to USC, I guess, but it just, with Texas, I guess. I mean, yeah, sure, you win a hotshot offensive coordinator, but Lincoln Riley didn't have a head coaching record when we hired him, but he was the best play caller in the country. So Sarkisian, would you say he's the best player caller in the country? Because he's not.
No,
I think Lincoln Riley's here, but I think Lane Kiffin. Look what he did at Alabama. He put up great numbers too.
Yep.
And he did it with Jalen Hurts, who can't read the field. You know what I mean? Like, he chucks the ball deep and hopes that someone catches it. I just I don't know. Steve Sarkisian, it'll be interesting to see how he does, because there's so much talent down there. I mean, I'm surprised Charlie Strong didn't win, because I always liked the guy. He always had a great defensive philosophy. I just don't think he was the right fit for Texas. It's weird, because you have to be a good politician on top of a great head coach. So, and I think Mac Brown was perfect at that. That's why he stayed there so long, because he was a great politician. And eventually, I think you outgrow the politics. I'm sure that's what happened with him. That's why he retired, and they forced him out.
And they forced him out, yeah.
Yeah.
And look, the program's kind of been at very best.
Right.
Sam Ehlinger will always go down as we're back when he made that comment against Georgia.
Yeah.
How long? And I think I talked to a buddy of mine earlier. We were just texting. How long do you think Texas takes before they are back? Of course, the Big 12's weak, but they're not talent-wise, they're there, but they're not at the same time. I'd said 3 years. He thought that was too long.
I just think if it's 3 years, I think Sark's out. Which I just don't think what they gave Herman 5.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 5? Yeah. So the thing about Herman is if you gave him 4 or 5 weeks between the games, Texas would be real competitive, or they would lose by 3. You know, I mean, what LSU, right?
LSU,
they played LSU in the national championship year, and it was a close game.
Yep.
I think Tom Herman can get his team up for big games. Whenever there's a week in between, I just don't think he can handle it. Like they can't adjust well. So I think it's probably closer to 3 years. But they have the talent where it could be 2. It just depends on how they receive Sarkisian and if he can adapt to the politics, adapt to Texas. I mean, seriously, it's an animal.
Well, it's true, and they got so much pressure on it. You know, I kind of, as an OU fan, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway. I kind of feel bad for the coaches because there's so much pressure and politics that you get. You know, I wasn't a huge Tom Herman fan. I didn't think he was that great of a hire, but whatever. But it's like you guys come in, try to build something. Oh, you're out. Next guy in, you know, Charlie Strong. Then we got Tom Herman. Now we got Steve. I like the hire. It's interesting. I picture Steve Sarkisian being there, but whatever. Yeah. Matt, obviously Nick Saban wasn't going to go there as much as they want to keep saying that.
No.
I mean,
no way.
Yeah, no.
But like, I was going to say, with Texas, like, I heard something on the radio. I think it was Bobby Bowden. They're talking about Bowden on the radio, and that he was at Florida State for like 13 years, 10, 13 years before he won his first national championship. So, I mean, I know that's not realistic now. It's just not. But like 5 years, I mean, I would say Tom Herman's team finished pretty good last year. I mean, I know Colorado wasn't anything to write home about, but Casey Thompson was good.
I like what he brought. I think they have something special in him.
And Bijan Robinson, I mean, you're honestly Ellinger's biggest limiter. I feel like he played too hard a lot. It's like he's a good quarterback, really good quarterback, but I think he just pushes too hard 90% of the time. And I feel like if he let his ability do more of the playing, I think they have better results. But I just it's one of those things. You force him out, and you see what happens. But the Tom Herman hire was interesting when they made it because it's like, okay, he's a hot shot coordinator. Took a third string quarterback to the national championship with Cardale Jones, and then got the Texas gig. And I always thought his personality is so hateable. I mean, the guy is just so annoying.
Well, you got to look. You got to remember, he flipped off the camera and they were in the meeting room.
Yeah, I think Texas fit him very well. I think he was just the right amount of just idiot, like annoying. Like I think the boosters were like, what are we gonna do with this guy? But I just don't know. What do you do? Is 5 years too many for a coach? Like, is it just enough? Because it's like that's a full recruiting class. Yep. That's 4 years. So I mean, is it Texas like churning coaches out? I feel like that's what they do. They just grade up coaches and spit them out. So
it reminds me so much of like I know it's a bad analogy because the organizations. Well, it's a lot better now, but Cleveland, they've gone through so many head coaches, so many offensive coordinators, and you feel bad for whoever the quarterback was because they go through a new system year in and year out. It's like you can't improve if you continuously having the same different coach and offensive coordinator, and of course, being a Bronco fan, kind of, we're starting to get to that. We're starting to get there. With the same, turnover in coaches and assistants. But I mean, that's the question. Or has college football, or has the state of Texas in itself realized there's more outside the borders of the state to go and play for? I don't know what the issue is for Texas. But I hope Texas and people, you fan, you guys should be saying this. I want the Red River rivalry, even though it's always good, regardless of how good, bad, the ugly both teams are.
Yeah, I just want to see Texas. When I beat the hell out of them, I want them to be a top 10 team.
Well, exactly.
So.
Now, will they be a top 10 team in the SEC? I don't. And that might be the answer to their problems.
They're either gonna bend or break, or I think they're gonna have to figure out a way to survive, or they're gonna be down there with Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and they're gonna be banging the door for 5 wins, 6 wins, trying to be bowl eligible. They're gonna have to figure it out.
Well, not knocking completely Texas, I would still take a shot at them, but right now if you look at the current SEC stack, they're definitely ahead of Vandy.
Right.
Are they ahead of Mississippi State? I like what Mike Leach is doing. Do I give him the edge over Mississippi State?
Yeah, I think you do. I only say that I like Mike Leach as a coach.
Oh, I do too.
I just don't know if he fits down there. I just don't like his personality. I mean, we'll see. It's only his second year last year, and it was COVID. So I mean, we'll see what he does this year. And I mean, the SEC's moving to the spread anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But will his personality continue to be received? I mean, Les Miles was, I guess, and he was a weird dude. He's on a whole nother story. Seriously, he'd go on and on about Les Miles. What's been going on with him and that disaster up there north. But I think Texas would be over Mississippi State just based on talent. I mean, Texas talent-wise has talent equal to probably the top half of the SEC. I mean, they really do. Mm-hmm. I think they're about. I mean, because I think they may have more blue chips than Oklahoma does.
That they do, yeah.
Which is crazy. Just talent alone, I think they're probably better than 4 or 5, the bottom 4 or 5 SEC teams alone.
Because there'll be 16. So what we're probably going to guess, maybe 11, 12, somewhere in that ball frame, 10th.
Yeah, and obviously the pod situation thing, I don't know how they're going to do the divisions there, but Texas is whatever pod they get in, they better hope it's with like Missouri and Arkansas, or else it's just, I don't know. I think they're going to get reality checked quicker than anyone else.
Well, and that's why I'm glad you brought that up. That was the next topic I was going to bring was pods. I like the idea of the pods. The scheduling is there. The SEC broke it out, of course. Well, their proposal of it. Now, whether or not I don't know what the scenario is going to be, but I like the idea. I don't know what the best situation is, but you look at the pod D or whatever it was, OU, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, not bad. Yeah. Most probably easiest division, I would have said, imagine.
Right.
How would what would be the best case scenario? Because obviously now you got 16 teams, unless you just do 8 and just hope for the best. I don't know. But
yeah, depending on what the NCAA allows, because do they allow a semifinal conference championship and then a final,
Well, see, that's how they brought that up was the pods. You'd have practically bracket 1 would be A and maybe D, I don't know, and CB, I don't know how they're going to work that, but I like that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know where all this fits.
Yeah, it's like, cause I guess it's what the NCAA allows, because if it's 3 games for the playoff, that's what. So you're going from playing 15 to 17. That's only one conference championship game. If you're playing a semi and a conference championship game, that's 1 extra. So that's 18. So we're getting to a lot of games.
Almost getting to a full NFL season, right?
There. Yeah, and you don't want to break the kids. So I would probably imagine maybe Alabama and Auburn switch to the East, and then Oklahoma, Texas go to the West, something like that. I mean, I know divisions and pageantry and all that are sacred in the SEC, but that to me geographically makes the most sense if you don't allow the semifinal final championship game, because I think that's the only way to make the pods work, unless you get rid of divisions completely. I think that's the only way it works.
I could see that, man. Talk about just twisting the SEC. We're just gonna toss it. I would. I mean, the traditional SEC went out the window 10 years ago when they took in Missouri and Texas A&M.
Right. And you got to think, some of those teams don't play each other for like 10, 15 years cross division. The pod system will allow them to play each other more often. Yeah,
I think they said every 3 to 4 years.
Right. So you'll see what Tennessee and Alabama, you see that every year. Tennessee and Arkansas? Yeah, you'll see that every 3 years versus every 20. So, I mean, That's just how the scheduling system works. It's as old as our conference. But,
Yeah.
and I mean, the best part about it is they're going to blame Texas for all this. We're going to be fine. We're going to come in and they're not breaking in their pageantry at all. It's all them. According to them, it's all Texas, not us. But
Texas ruins everything.
exactly. So now they're going to ruin their format, and they're going to make Alabama go to the East. Oh God, Alabama would be pissed to go to the East.
Oh my God.
We've won the West for so long. Now we go to the East. Yeah. I think the pod situation is the only way they keep everyone happy, unless they get rid of divisions completely. Because then they can't just be mad because we left the West. Then there's no divisions. It just doesn't matter.
No.
So I think the pod system or the getting rid of the divisions would be if you want to accommodate everyone. So
I like the pods. I think that's a good idea. Now whether or not that happens, I doubt it. We won't know till whenever. How soon do you think? I still think we play next year. As much as I know a lot of people don't agree with that, I just don't see the Big 12 now at this rate because it's so awkward. Just imagine that Zoom call that day that everybody was invited was what was supposedly what was said. Everybody was invited. Of course, OU Texas doesn't show up. Right. I wonder what the conversation was between the remaining 8 teams. Like, so Oklahoma State,
how do we survive?
As Kansas State twiddles the thumbs, what do we do from here?
Yeah, you guys are the leaders now. I mean, essentially,
take it all, mullet man.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't. There's no way it's 2025.
Oh no.
There's no way. I could realistically see 23.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
It's no longer than then, and as soon as next year. I think there's got to be lawyers working. They're working behind the scenes.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
I think they're hoping that the Big 12 dissolves. I think they're hoping that they're trying to find a home, and everyone tries to find a home, and then it dissolves or whatever. You know, I think that's what Oklahoma and Texas are hoping for. Obviously, so you don't have to pay out the money. But I think the money that they pay out, I think they'd start making it back right away.
They would make a lot of money back really quick.
Right. So it's like, can you make up the money, the buyout difference from next year to 25? You know, those 3 years, can you make up that difference? Is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and I guarantee you, I think with the SEC, I bet you they could.
Real quick.
Do you do that and then go ahead and take advantage of everything that's going to benefit you? However, that 12-team playoff won't be even stated until like 24, 25. So if we go next year, it's going to be a lot harder to get in because they're going to retain that 4-team format for another 2 years at least. So
yeah, because they still got all the other kind of hurdles they got to get over.
So if Oklahoma is going to run the table and win a national championship, it's probably going to have to be this year. If we do the SEC thing. Because I'll be the first to say, I love to see Caleb Williams in that offense against the SEC next year and beyond. I mean, I'd love to win the SEC and go 12-1. It's just in your first year, how realistic is that?
You're
not playing Kansas State.
Yeah,
we're not playing Kansas State. We're not playing West Virginia. Sorry, West Virginia. We're not. We're not. It's not the same competition anymore, and everyone's going to get reality checked. And so, yeah, I mean, 23, I could see that because we make a run this year, and we see how Caleb Williams does, and we'll see next year. And then you're like, okay, we had 2 years, but then we've also had 2 years with our foot out the door. So it's just like a breakup. You don't sit there and stick around usually. So, normally, you don't.
I know one thing, and I know I'm all over the place, but it's like Oklahoma State. You kind of have to feel bad for those poor bastards because 10 years ago they had the opportunity to protect. If I trust what Bob Stoops what he said was true, I'm sure they have the opportunity to go. Right. Supposedly the SEC didn't want Oklahoma State even 10 years ago, and obviously that's why OU chose to stay, and maybe could have cost them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But do you think the reality check finally just kicked in to OSU? Just realized that you guys were ran by your big brother. Nobody really likes you. Now go away and annoy somebody else.
Yeah. I do feel bad for them. I just I grew up When I was first into football, I'm still a uniform guy. I love uniforms. And like,
Yep.
I always thought Oklahoma State's was cool. Like I like the orange and black. And then I realized they don't win ever. So I mean, it's like banging your head against the wall, right? You play Oklahoma and you're like, well, hopefully it's close. You know, like at what point does it get like just really annoying? Like
It's a mental mind game at this rate. They go in, they hyped up, they get on. Doesn't matter if it's up in Boo Pinkett Stadium or down in Memorial Stadium. Doesn't matter where. It's like, oh crap.
I mean, legitimately, like what? When Blackman and Whedon were there, that was their last legit national championship type team.
Yeah, when they went to beat Stanford in the Fiesta Bowl,
and they should have played LSU. God, I mean, if they wanted a legit national championship, there you go.
Yep.
You know, you don't have to worry about 1945. You can just take that crap off and put that there.
It still should come off. I don't know why it's even up there.
They should have put the UCF thing. They should have did what UCF did and just named themselves national champions that year. Like, I know we didn't play LSU, but nobody really wanted to see them play Alabama, so we won, really. So I just, you know, it's kind of sad to see how I know that the president was just trying to fire up their fan base.
Well, of course, yeah.
So I get that, but like, OU and OSU were like, it's not. I know A&M and Texas hate each other. Like, I get that, but like Oklahoma State, it's important to them to play this game, and I mean financially. I mean, from what I've heard, like it just sells tickets for them, and like without Oklahoma, who are you gonna play? Like, who are you gonna play? Tulsa? So you're gonna tell me they're gonna fill up the stadium for Tulsa? You know, I just where does that replacement game come from? You know, and it's just. There's not really much of a benefit for Oklahoma to play. However, but if you run into an Oklahoma State team that's legit, maybe it's not. You know, so
I'm looking forward to this year's Bedlam because you know darn well
we're going to Stillwater too.
We're going to Stillwater.
Spicy.
That place is going to be rocking, and that's going to get. I'm afraid that could get nasty.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be one for the ages. Just
it's
like
one of those that you're going to see like beer bottles and.
I feel like any
popcorn and
I feel like any road game Oklahoma goes to, except for Lawrence, is going to be we go to Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence because they go to Manhattan this year.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I feel like any game is going to be at Oklahoma Hate Fest. I really do. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be real fun.
This conference season is going to be like Iowa State. I know they're coming here, but like, oh man, it's going to be some great games this year. I think just because of everything that's happened.
And Manhattan's going to be rocking, which it always is, regardless of how good, bad, the ugly they are. But
yeah,
in the last 2 years they beat us, so they're going to bring their A game. Fan wise, yeah, they are going to be rowdy. But no, I think this year it's going to be like a world tour, like the
bye guys,
the farewell tour.
See on the other side, we're gonna be down here at the cool kids table. You guys stay here, okay? Yeah, like make sure you listen to your parents, okay? We're gonna go hang out with some cool people.
Mike Gundy, I need you to reconsider your haircut.
Right. Yeah, I need you to either cut it or use it, okay? And if you're gonna use it, I need you to keep these guys in line. So, but in reality, I was listening to the radio. And I heard somebody say, like, the SEC has a model for rivalry games.
Yep.
Because Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Yep.
So Oklahoma could easily play Oklahoma State in November, like they normally do, and it stays just fine. So it's basically like, does Oklahoma State stay butthurt and punish their fan base and punish their school, or just say, because Oklahoma State was like, hey, or Oklahoma was like, hey, we're doing what's best for us.
Well, of course.
And we're sorry it worked out that way. But, like, this is what we're doing for Oklahoma. And so, sorry, like, no hard feelings. That's just what we're doing. And Oklahoma State was like, it's just, which is funny because we beat them all the time. I know it's just in football. I know in other sports they're very good school, like well-rounded. So that's fine. If you want to pack the house for whatever else, you do that. But, there's 100,000 fans in Oklahoma and you can fit it in 3 gyms.
Yep.
That's just kind of how it works. But like, I would love to keep them. I just want them to play still because I think it's important to the state. But if they didn't, I mean, Oklahoma can find someone else to play. It wouldn't really hurt our feelings too much. I don't know. I like the bedlam aspect of it. I really do, because if you run into an Oklahoma State fan, you can laugh at them, and they're like, oh well, we have other sports, and you're like, I don't watch other sports except for softball. So,
well, that's what's funny is, and they always bring that up. Well, we beat you guys in wrestling. We won the overall bedlam bill. Okay, congrats. I mean, cool. So you beat OU in a really bad women's basketball team, a men's basketball program that's trying to find its identity in wrestling. Well, OSU's a wrestling school. Congrats. I mean,
right, they are. Yeah, they're a great wrestling school.
Baseball, okay. Well, who cares about that? Because let's be honest, baseball team, I don't know what's going on with them.
Right. Does it sell TV contracts? Don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm not flipping through it on ESPN, I promise you I didn't see it. No. So, congrats.
Hey, I'm a Sooner fan for all sports, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Football sells and helps the university. That's all that matters.
Yep. And I got in their softball this year, though. Oklahoma softball, the women's softball. Dude. It was electric. Like, I didn't normally ever watch that stuff, but I caught it, and I was like, COVID's made me appreciate, different sports. And so,
right.
And I'm not used to watching women's softball, but it was cool. I mean, electric, and they were great. But either way, sure, Oklahoma State can claim whatever they want and do whatever they want, but at the end of the day, we run the state, and they just have to fall in line. Or, I mean, what are they going to do? Join the AAC? I mean, they're running out of options. I just hope they don't pass up something because they've we could have joined the Big Ten. Okay, well, you get railroaded by Ohio State. I mean, so I guess a Pac-12, they would be the third or fourth best football school out there.
I think they would compete. Honestly, I think, jokes aside, I really do. I think they would compete a whole lot better in the Pac-12 because they're a lot better than Washington State.
Right.
They're a whole lot better than UCLA, who's just fallen on their face.
Right.
You look at Arizona's fallen on their face. Arizona State is not bad, but
depends on the NCAA stuff.
That's true too.
But they're third, fourth. They can go in and compete first year. And I mean, that's the quickest way to a playoff spot.
They're better than Oregon State.
Right.
Washington.
I mean, you got to think how it shakes out. If they go to the AAC, it's not guaranteed. I mean, I guess it would be because they'll be the best school in the AAC probably in football. But then again, if you lose to Houston in the AAC or you lose to SMU, I mean, the playoff committee is going to laugh at you. Yeah, or Cincinnati, they're going to laugh at you. So, I mean, you can't afford to lose. And so it's just one of those deals. It's I hope they land in the Pac-12 because that would be cool to see a West division for the Pac-12, and it's out in the Central Time Zone because I think I was listening to Barry Trammell, and he was saying something the teams that would be here that the Pac-12 takes in the Central Time Zone would mainly play each other, and they would travel out to the West Coast maybe once or twice a season. And then if the conference championship game works out that way, maybe they host it in Texas or they host it in Stillwater. So they there's not as much travel as it seems if you split it up that way.
Exactly. I think, I know geographically they say, well, it wouldn't be a fit. Well, geographically, I don't think anybody cares at this rate.
West Virginia's in the Big 12.
West Virginia in the Big 12, and that makes no sense.
Right. Geographically, no.
No, I mean, I don't know what the answer is for OSU, but I definitely agree with you. I would hate for them to pass up on something just because whatever, and you get stuck with the Big 12 that could potentially still be around. They may not be. I really don't know.
Yeah. I just don't think there's no way they stay the Big 12. I think they merge. I think if there's any future for them, they have to merge with somebody. They can't stand by themselves. There's no way.
I love to see Pac-12, but then again, I don't know how that would affect the Christian schools in TCU and Baylor. I don't know.
And I mean, the Mountain West accepted
that's true.
I think that maybe the Mountain West, because I think the Mountain West is still around. Maybe the Pac-12 absorbs the Mountain West and the AAC merges with the Big 8. I mean, that's probably the most plausible thing if we're talking about super conferences, because then West Virginia and Notre Dame join the AAC.
That would make sense.
Well, Notre Dame I think they played in the ACC last year, and they signed some deal saying that if they were going to join a conference, it would be the ACC.
It'll be the ACC, yeah.
So, and I think that's probably the best case scenario. And then there you go. Then you've got the Pac West or whatever they want to call it, and then they've got the AAC Big 12, and then they've got the SEC, and then there's your 4 big ones. So.
Speaking of Pac-12 and the ACC and all this, I don't know if you saw this or not, but the top 25 polls came out. I don't get much into it in the preseason, but they did come out. Of course, OU's 3, and Alabama's 1, Clemson's 2, Ohio State's 4, and Georgia's 5. Of course, no surprises here, really.
Yeah.
But what's your overtake on OU's season? I know, from a fan standpoint, I still think we can easily have a team to go unbeaten. I could easily still see that.
Yeah.
What's your overtake so far as we head almost so close to the season opener?
I want us to go undefeated. I really do. It's just how many years have we watched them lose a game they shouldn't have? And I think in this conference, it's hard to consistently be motivated. And I think it's a big part of it. When you play Kansas State, Kansas, and West Virginia 3 games in a row, I mean, none of those guys are going to be something that gets you real motivated. So I hope they go undefeated. That'd be great. But realistically, just which game is it? I don't think we lose to Iowa State. What we saw last year is the corners are starting to catch interceptions. Yep. So that's the good. I think we beat Iowa State in Ames last year, and we go to the playoff if we catch 3 of those interceptions that Purdy threw. Because I swear he threw 3 of them, and we dropped them all. And so, and our receivers dropped, 9 touchdown passes last year. So if we fix our hands, I think OU's a playoff team one way or another this year. I don't think they're going to miss that, barring anything crazy. But I don't think they run the table. I just don't trust it enough. We'll just see how the leadership shakes out. Is Spencer Rattler embracing that leadership role now? Who's the leaders on the team? You know what I mean? We still dropped the game we shouldn't have, and we had Baker Mayfield in his prime.
You know what game concerns me, even though I don't think it – well, on paper, it shouldn't be much of a game. That Nebraska game, I'm telling you, that I brought this up with the previous show with Brett Gibbons. That game, even though I don't see OU losing it, I just have that feeling. That dark horse game.
My dark horse game is Baylor on the road. You saw what we looked like against Aranda last year. If we, I'm not saying our defense won us the game last year, and our defense is going to be better. But there's actually a lot in the secondary we don't know still. Because we know about Woody Washington. He's amazing. He's solid.
He's
DJ Graham's probably going to be a stud. We have to see more. Obviously Trey Brown's gone though, and Trey Norwood. Some of those vets are gone, And then who shall not be named, that wore number 44 is gone. But everyone's favorite punching bag on Twitter. God, that guy has got flames.
You ain't gonna miss Buki.
His size just doesn't. I don't know what Mike Stoops is doing. I know he was recruiting stars and not quite a fit. So the guy, he was a corner. They were so hell bent on making him a safety. I just don't. He wasn't the right fit, and maybe Washington will make him a corner, a boundary.
I think
corner?
Washington will. Yeah, I think Washington will utilize him to what he should be. The only thing I didn't like about Buki, and I think we all would agree, was he would be a lot of reason why we give these games up or blow leads or whatever, because he's stupid penalties.
Right, and I guess it's how football's evolved, and you either get into it or you get out. And I think it's he didn't want to adapt his personality, because I think there's certain things you have to start learning over time. He was here 3 years, right? So it's hey, after 3 years, these same things are still getting you in trouble.
Yep.
And so you sometimes you just either learn or, I know Lincoln's a player's coach. So he's not really going to chastise you, especially where people can see it. He might, I've seen him lose it a little bit sometimes with players, but he's a player's coach. So, he's just going to do what it takes to keep his players happy. And Buki, for what it's worth, he did start to adapt his game and become a really smart player. Like he was a technician, you know. He kind of was like, okay, you're going to play me at safety. Well, I'll do these things, and you know, I know the LSU game, he got ejected, or he got ejected because he's an idiot. That was a really stupid play.
Yeah, that targeting. Yeah,
but like, there's so many twists and turns in that Peach Bowl where the momentum slips one way or another. That missed pass interference on Jaden Hazelwood.
Yep.
That game turned then, and then he popped Hilaire and then got ejected, and there you go. You know, I mean, it's just you can't afford mistakes like that against such a team. So, whenever I watched him, because I looked at tape at him whenever he was coming out of high school, he was an amazing corner. Like you play him on the boundary, that's where he was. And then they stuck him at safety, and I was like, what are you people doing? And then, you know, Alex Grinch was like, hey, he's got experience. He's kind of embraced the safety role, so we'll just kind of go with it. And, you know, and now that he's got 6'3", 6'2" safeties, there's really just there's no spot, you know, and there's no, hey, go transfer somewhere else. I can use you because you don't fit my system. And I've got guys now that do. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of question marks in the secondary. I think we just have to see. I think there's a ton of potential. Yep. Not question marks as far as like, are we going to watch us give up 600 yards to somebody? It's like, are they going to have the leadership? Are they going to create the turnovers? Are they going to do what needs to be done and take care of business, you know? I think that's just more so, can they take care of business all the time, a whole season without, you know, what leaders grow? Like who comes out of the secondary and leads the secondary, you know? Is it Woody? Is it DJ? Or is it Key Lawrence? Or, man, I want to see, what's the kid that's playing corner, but he's a junior college guy. He got hurt last year and didn't play. Justin Harrington. Yes. I want that dude. I watched a video of him on Twitter today working out. That dude moves. His move, like for his size, he moves crazy. Like his body is just. I'm like, wow.
I'm looking forward to seeing Winfrey on the D-line.
Dude I have a man crush on that guy. Like, I told my girlfriend about it. I'm like, look at this guy. Look at this guy. He's a monster. We just don't see players like that.
No.
Here. And so, like, you going up against that, you don't want any. I promise. And I think this year is going to be even better. Like the guy last year, he got so close to a bunch of sacks, and I don't think that's going to be close this year. I think you got Redmond. I mean, you've got dudes we've got dudes for the first time I can remember just everywhere. And like I was saying about the Baylor game, though, Baylor's always weird. Think about us going to Baylor the last 5 years. I think we might have won one game where we dominated there in Waco. Rand is a great defensive coach, and I think he schemed very well against Lincoln Riley last year. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Lincoln was probably playing it close to the vest with Rattler being young. I think he's like trying to get Rattler to read the field better. And I think he was trying to get Rattler to advance his game. I think this year he'll unload more on Aranda, as much more because I think Rattler can handle a lot more. But I think that could be it's a night game probably. Baylor probably won't be too bad. I don't know how their offense is going to look. They have that Zeno kid still that played us in the Big 12 championship a couple years ago, and they have the Bohannon guy. So their offense is going to be probably speed, option, whatever, spread. So we'll see. I mean, I think Baylor's the game to me that sticks out outside of like Kansas State. Can we overcome that? I think we should have beat them last year. I don't know what happened. I watched that game, and whenever we lost, I was just like, I don't know what I just watched over the last quarter and a half. So it's like they were looking for leadership and they couldn't find it. Jalen Hurts is gone, and those guys are gone. We'll say what you want about Jalen. He was still a great leader. Like, he could still rally people. And you just didn't have that. So, Baylor to me is the game that sticks out to me, though, because their defense is going to be stingy. Mm-hmm. Is their offense going to come to play? Because our defense is. I think our defense got up for every game last year, if I can remember right, even including Kansas State. I know it was rough. I think it was game 2 of COVID, and I think a lot of guys are still way out of shape. But
the inconsistency in between breaks and all the practice, I'm sure, killed as well.
Yeah, the contact tracing, all those things. I mean, fall camp just started, and you don't hear. We haven't heard about anybody being out for contact tracing. All the guys are there. They're giving it their best. I think this year is going to be probably one of the best years of college football that we've seen in a long time.
I think this year it's OU's OU. I know Alabama. They never reload. They just rebuild and move on and dominate. But I really do think that this is OU's team this year to make that run. Because you look at the across the board, Alabama, Ohio State. You got new quarterbacks coming in. I know Bryce Young at Alabama. I expect to do big things out there. But
yeah, I'm sure.
Clemson, of course, they lost quite a bit of talent. But I think this is a team that OU can put together as long as they can stay healthy and Spencer Rattler continues to improve.
Right.
This team can really do something. And I like what Alex Grinch is doing on defense. I think he's just cleaned house and built it the way it really should be built and favors all these players' style of play.
Right. Yeah, I think his defense is perfect for what the offenses are going to. I think probably 90% of schools in college run the spread, some type of version. So I think the speed D concept is the perfect concept. I really do. I think you saw like Alabama's defense, and a lot of people wanted Golding before we could get Grinch. But I think football's turned into turnovers and just kind of holding on, because these teams are going to be fast and they're going to put up a lot of yards and points, and especially those great teams. I don't think you're going to hold the days of it being 10-3 or over. So like how the top 5 is now, I think like Georgia at 5. I haven't, even with Georgia beating us a couple years ago, I really still haven't bought into Georgia. It's hard for me to believe in them offensively. I know they have Monken as their OC, but the JT, what is it, Daniels, the
JT Daniels.
I don't know. I know they beat Cincinnati, and it took a lot for them to beat Cincinnati last year in that Sugar Bowl, but just something about it just rubs me the wrong way. I just don't see Georgia. I believe in Alabama more, and they've lost more. Yeah. Alabama's lost a lot more, but I believe in Alabama more so than I believe in Georgia. I mean, in that top 4, and I think it's OU and Clemson as far as like everybody else, because Clemson at least has a guy that won them 2 games. Ugalele, or however you say his name, I'm sure it's close, I hope. But that guy, he's looked good. He looked good in the relief.
He's not a bad quarterback.
He's got a great arm. Yeah. Can Dabo develop him? We'll see. I mean, what he did with Lawrence, but Lawrence is transcendental. Yep. Like he's a transcendent player. But I think Clemson and Oklahoma have the 2 best guys. I think Ohio State has a huge question mark at quarterback, and then Alabama, how does Bryce Young look? I mean, Oklahoma was in on him, but then we got Rattler, so I think they were we got Williams, right? Were they in the same class? Bryce Young and Caleb Williams? I can't remember what class.
See, I want to say
somebody was in the same class. We were just.
Or is it Rattler and Young?
It might have been. I
think it was Rattler and Young.
Because I think Riley had went out, and I think that Young was like his second. And, Bryce Young was like, I love Oklahoma, but like Riley just really wants somebody else. So obviously, I think Lincoln gets what he wants, obviously. Outside of that kid from Georgia, Brock Vandagriff. Yeah, I know.
Let's see. I want to say it's not showing up now because it's so far back, but I want to say that was those 2, was Rattler and
I think that Riley just wanted Rattler. That was his first choice, and Rattler was mutual. So there's really no reason to go to Bryce Young if you get what you want. He doesn't recruit too, so as far as that top 5 goes, it's probably right. But I think Oklahoma's I don't want us to be number 1. I don't want us to have that target just yet. I think 3 is fine. I think you could go 2 or 3. I think either one of those is fine. But I would even say Iowa State maybe at 5 versus Georgia, just based on what's coming back. I mean, Iowa State's got a
team coming back.
They've got a squad. Now, they need to beat Iowa for me to take them seriously. I'm serious. They can't lose to Iowa. They have to beat Iowa for me to take them serious.
If anybody wants to take them serious, because I know I asked Brett this because he did an article that the underdogs in each year, who he thought and so on and so forth, but that one national championship, there were underdogs that started the season. Of course, I asked the question, is Iowa State a potential underdog? He didn't think so much, and at the same time, if anybody wants to take Iowa State serious, and like you said, they're going to have to beat Iowa. I don't think that's the biggest game they got before Big 12 play, but
And they can't lose a clunker. I know. Was it Louisiana Lafayette? Is that who they lost to last year? They weren't bad though. Louisiana wasn't bad, and Texas has the honor of playing them this season, but they weren't bad, and because I think they beat Kansas State as well. So I know we lost to 2 Sun Belt teams, and everyone was laughing at us.
Kansas State, I think, and Iowa State, I believe, were the 2 Big 12 teams that.
Yeah, and it was just funny because Iowa State was the team that, like, if they beat Oklahoma, they can go to the playoff. It was funny how that all worked out. But yeah, Iowa State's got to beat. They've got to run their non-conference schedule and win every game in their non-con for me to take them seriously. If they don't, they may be a top 10, top 15. Well, I don't know if they'll be top 15 because the voters still control that.
Yeah.
So if they drop a game that's not to Iowa, because I think if they lose to Iowa, I think they'll still somewhat believe in them, which I don't if they don't beat Iowa. Because come on, you've got so much talent, and I haven't heard a peep about Iowa, but we've heard a whole lot about Iowa State. So
Iowa State's taking the show from Iowa right now.
So if you don't beat Iowa, in my eyes, we'll just have to see. But the voters might not take like no mercy on you. I think they'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I think Oklahoma is whenever they would say, okay, here we go, you're out or whatever. I think they'll still be a top 10 game whenever they come to Norman, at least as long as they win, as long as they don't lose any games they're not supposed to.
Because even if they lose to Iowa, I'm looking at the top poll right now. You got Iowa State that's at 8, Iowa currently at 18. If they happen to lose to Iowa, it's not going to drop them tremendously far down. So and as long as Iowa wins out, at least like you said, top 15, I think will be fair. Top 10, somewhere in that ballpark. Of course, OU be top 5 as long as they can do what they got to do.
Right.
But there's one game I may actually watch, surprisingly. Just because now with everything that unfolded, Arkansas plays Texas this year.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested to watch that one.
I'm kind of curious how that's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, what are they're old, like Big 8 rivals, right? Something like that.
The old Southwest Conference.
Southwest Conference, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah. That'll be a fun game. Like if I was in their fan base, if I was in either one of those fan bases, I'd be excited for that game. I think there's a lot of big games out there, like Alabama, Miami. Yeah. I think that game might be more interesting than people think, as long as De'Aaron King's healthy. That game, we'll find out how good Alabama is. I'm not saying Miami is a world beater, anyways. I would like to see them better. I really would. It's kind of like the Texas situation. Mm-hmm. I think football's better whenever those schools are good. But you don't know. I mean, De'Aaron King's not an easy guy to play. Even though, whenever Alex Grinch came that first year and we played Houston, that was pretty fun. And people were taking bets on the message boards on how many points Houston would score whenever Alex Grinch came. And hell, man, we held them to like 20 points in 3 quarters, and they were a team that had scored 50-plus every game the year before. Yep. So it was impressive. But yeah, I think Alabama, Miami. I'm just looking forward to any football. I mean, honestly.
I'm gonna say I'm ready.
We're like 2 weeks away from week 0, whatever they call it, and I've got Labor Day weekend off, so I'm ready to watch that OU Tulane game.
So far, I have Labor Day weekend off. So far, so hopefully that stays intact because I got a lot of football to catch on that weekend.
Oh, I know, and I'm excited to play Tulane. I know Tulane. I mean, it should just be what it is, but like going to New Orleans, I'm sure it'll be fun. And I don't know. This season's going to be a lot of fun. It's cool that we're out of. Well, I say we're out of the COVID stuff. I know the Delta thing, but most of the programs are fully vaccinated or really close to it. So
I know Mississippi Lane Kiffin reported 100% on their end. So. And I'm sure a lot more universities are. They just ain't going to publicly say, hey, we're 100%.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, we should probably see a lot less contact tracing and a lot less canceled games this year. I think it's going to be just a complete season, which is something I think a lot of people have been fiending for about 2 years. I mean, even last year was fine. But I honestly, I think I watched one half of the national championship. I didn't even watch the second half because I think it was already going Alabama's way. And so,
Well, don't forget, I think it's week 1 as well. Georgia and Clemson, top 5 right there.
so we got Alabama, Miami, and Georgia, Clemson.
Yep. I believe that is, where's my Bleacher Report? I believe that is our Labor Day weekend.
All right. That's what I'm talking about.
I believe. Let's see. Nebraska, Illinois kicks everything off that weekend.
Yeah.
So we got Notre Dame goes to Florida State. That should be interesting. LSU, UCLA, where's that? Yeah, Georgia and Clemson Saturday, September 4th, 6:30 p.m. on ABC.
Oh man, we've got Alabama and Miami on the same day.
Yep.
Wow. Those are some big games right there. I guess we're gonna find out a lot then, even on the first week.
Alabama's right before that game as well, so double header right there.
Yeah, and you got Oklahoma Tulane at 11 a.m.
Go figure.
Just to warm us up.
I shouldn't laugh. I'm getting sick and tired of these 11 a.m. games. Which Tulane, okay, whatever. I don't care. But Nebraska, I was a little bummed. I was bummed it wasn't prime time. I get Nebraska's not Nebraska, but
right.
You got to go tradition. But whatever.
You should, yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the bigger things that got Joe C. I think the works were in it for SEC movement, but I think that 11 a.m. thing really pissed him off. And obviously it did. I mean, he released that statement. And, honestly, I don't mind the 11 a.m. games. I really don't, especially against teams that are not any good. Because you get that game over with. You get that game over with. You got a full day of football. Now, if Oklahoma drops a clunker at 11 a.m., then you got to think about it all day. So it's one of those things. And I'm sure the guys that go to the games every game, I'm sure that's like, hosting recruits and things like that. It's hard to manage all that whenever it's 11 a.m. all the time. And obviously Fox's business model was like, hey, Oklahoma, you're going to be big noon kickoff. Embrace the 11 o'clock, which in reality, it's really hard for Oklahoma to do any recruiting or anything like that whenever you're based around 11 o'clock kickoffs. So I like 11 a.m. personally, certain games, but I wouldn't mind. I know the Cotton Bowl and OU Texas being played at night. I know that's like a whole thing. People getting shot and whatever. I don't know if that's really a thing, but even at 2:30 would be fine. I think
I'll take 2:30.
Yeah, because I think CBS would do something with that with the SEC. I think it's like a 2:30 showcase or whatever they do. And I think that would be perfect. But the 11 a.m. thing, I won't miss it. I say that I like it, but I won't miss it.
Oh, Lord, no.
I don't think anybody does. I'm telling you, that's what you hear all the time. You see it on Twitter.
Oh, I know. Trust me. Another 11 a.m.
I don't think anybody's complaining about 11 a.m. in Baton Rouge, though. I mean, because then you get to go down. No, because
then you can drink and do whatever you want afterwards.
Exactly, and you partied Friday night. I'm sure the whales that are going down there watching the game, that's what I call some of these boosters. The whales, man, they got the money. They go down there. The big fans, the season ticket holders for 100 years.
Yep.
They've been around since time began, and they're going to go down there and just drop stacks, Friday night. And because I read that some of these people on the message boards have bought Tulane season tickets so they can get tickets to this game. It's just
wow.
It's just funny. It's like, I want to go so bad that I'm going to buy their season tickets. Like, what are you going to do with the other ones? Who's going to buy them?
Nobody.
All right, you're going to sell the rest of their home games and you might get as much as a single game ticket would have cost.
Yeah, you won't get your money back out of that.
Yeah, you have to give them away.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's funny how crazy the fan base is, and I'm sure other fan bases are the same way, but it's just funny to see that certain OU fans are buying out Tulane season tickets just to see this game.
Oh, God.
But I guess in theory, a lot of people didn't go to the games last year because of the this limited seating, which I actually had an amazing time going to a game with limited seating because I could sit wherever I wanted.
Yes, you can.
Or nobody could get close to me, and it was great. I could just make room for myself, and yeah, it was. That's the way to see a game. But I know it's not.
It's not realistic now.
No. But it was great though. When you think about it, kind of depressing, but it was great anyways.
Football's football, regardless. I mean,
Yeah, it's always better in person, but it's even better when you're a fan and you're sitting there and you've got all this room in a 100,000 seat stadium when you're normally going and you can't move,
Yep.
and then you
Everybody's
go
standing
and you're
up.
like, all right, cool.
You got to use the restroom really, really bad, but you got to stand in line for 15, 20 minutes.
Right. During
Food.
COVID, during COVID, you used to go get a beer.
Just got,
At halftime, just go get a beer.
yep, come back and you
Line.
make it before.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, God. Well, JT, it's a pleasure having you on. I'll be doing a college football preview show next week, so if you're interested, I'll definitely hit you up on that, and we'll get you on as well. And
it'd be great.
All that good stuff. Of course, everybody, JT. JT, how can they find you on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at JS the Meister, so JSTHEMEISTER, and I'm mainly just a lurker until football season, so I don't tweet a whole lot, but so whenever football starts, I definitely start ramping it up. So
very nice. I'll get that in the description. And JT, as always, man, excuse me, pleasure having you, and looking forward to many more. And of course, having you back on during football season and even postseason. Hopefully, we can get a natty this year.
Oh, I know, it'd be great. I'll pop one on stream. We'll have a beer on stream. If we win a national championship, we'll have 2. We'll have 3 maybe. We'll see how it goes.
We'll do a live stream of the national championship game.
Yeah, let's do it. Hopefully it goes our way because it's not gonna be
Oh my God, no. But pleasure having you on.
All right, man.
Have a great rest of your week. You've been listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast. Listen to us on iTunes and Google, Spotify, all that good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful week. We'll get you all the college football news next week as we get closer to kickoff. Have a great week.